Hi there, Scorpio. I'm EllaAradia, and welcome to your May 2026 Psychic Tarot reading. This reading is for my Scorpio water signs, where we'll be exploring the overall energies and themes for the month ahead, as well as taking a deeper dive into how these might be playing out for you in your life. This is a general reading, so it's going to resonate a little bit differently for all of you. But what I find is there's always a shared theme that runs through the collective of all of you Scorpio signs. It may show up in different areas of your life in slightly different ways, but the theme is always the same. So take what feels aligned to you and just leave the rest. And before we jump in, a big thank you to all of you who are supporting my channel by liking and subscribing. So if you enjoy this reading and you haven't already done that, please do. It helps the channel out a lot. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, and then you can get notified when the next videos are up. So Scorpio, let's jump in. I always like to tune into the energies first, Scorpio, before I start pulling any cards. I'm a psychic reader, so I like to always see, what the universe brings in, what the universe shows me. I feel like this is a month of letting go, and I feel like it's all about letting go of old versions of yourself. Because there's something I'm feeling here around, for many of you, betraying your truth in some way, whether this relates to love or career. And a big invitation, I feel, to, really let go of any old versions of yourself which might be holding you back from experiencing more in your life, having more abundance, opening up to a deeper love. But I feel like it's going to take a little bit of exploration, because in order to be able to really, let go of these old patterns, these old versions of yourself, you need to be really honest with how, betraying your truth in some way is actually serving you. And very often it's because we're avoiding something. Sometimes that can actually be something positive. Sometimes there can be a fear of success, a fear of being seen, for example. Sometimes there can be a fear to open up to love. Maybe, you've been hurt in the past, and, there's a fear to open up your heart again. Because what I do see around you is opportunity, whether that is love or career. In the overall energies, we have the Fool, and that's some kind of new beginning for you, Scorpio. The Fool is the first card in the Major Arcana, and it's all about the beginning of a whole new chapter. So in order for that to happen, that means the closing of an old, significant part of your life, the closing of an old chapter. And the energies really of the Fool are really embracing some kind of new beginning here with an open heart, with curiosity. And I feel that is you, really stepping into a whole new version of yourself, and one that you are actually more aligned with, closer to your truth, your true authentic self, because there's a big calling here to, I feel, open up to something greater. There's a big calling to expand, to grow, to, reach more potential in whatever area of your life that relates to. And the Fool is all about that. It's all about, a whole new beginning, a brand new chapter for you. What lies in your most recent past is justice. Your current energies, the Knight of Pentacles. Your feelings towards your situation, the Moon. I'm already feeling from this card, this is usually all about a lack of clarity, things being hidden, sometimes deception, but it also represents the fears and insecurities of the subconscious, because my instant feeling, the words I just saw when I tuned into that card, were just be careful that you're not clouding your own judgment. So it may actually be you here that is holding yourself back from, whatever this new beginning is here of the Fool. However, in your recent past, we have Justice, and Justice is an energy which comes in to cut through any situation to bring about fairness, balance and fairness. And so there is something in your past where, to me, it feels like there hasn't been an equal give and take. It may be something or somebody that you have. I feel in terms of career, I feel like this is something where perhaps you've been putting more in to a certain project or a job than you have really been receiving back. There's some kind of imbalance here, which I feel is really draining your energies. And in terms of love, it almost feels like it's flipped the other way to me. I feel like you've got somebody who's pouring into you and you are holding back a little bit. The Knight of Pentacles is, the slowest moving knight in the tarot. Sometimes in a love reading, it represents, someone who knows what's required. They know what the other person wants, but they're just not really doing it. They're not really fully showing up. There's quite a held back energy in this card. And again, it's all about, for those of you that this does relate to love, it's all about, diving a little bit deeper here as to, what is holding you back from really matching this person's energy and embracing that love, embracing this connection. And I see the word betrayal, and I feel like it's a past hurt where there's a sense of betrayal. For those of you that this relates to love, and your heart got hurt, and I feel like it's something which perhaps you haven't fully healed from. And sometimes that's something that we do, over time on our own. Some people, they need to be single to kind of work through something like that. But sometimes that healing can also take place within a connection with somebody else. Because the person that you're dealing with here, there's so much potential in this connection. And it may be that, if you can find the courage to perhaps let go of that held back energy, let go of the control, and just allow yourself to open up, because with every connection, there's always a risk. We can never say for certain, how something's going to turn out. But there's an invitation here to, I feel, open back up to love again. And there may have been a part of yours, still is, that's holding back, that's holding on to your sense of self very strongly in terms of, what you identify with that, which I feel is like independence, freedom. There's a fear to, not just open up your heart to this person, but to allow yourself to, I feel, kind of fall in there a little bit more. There's a fear to lose yourself, to lose that independence, that freedom. Let's just look at the challenge here. The challenge is the Wheel of Fortune. This is a card of divine timings, orchestration. This is usually an energy that comes in when the universe is, wanting to redirect us, to put you on a different path. And in the challenge, it may be that, you might be avoiding seeing perhaps the significance of this connection. Because to me, this always speaks of soul contracts and, these kind of karmic connections. And usually, wrapped up in those kind of connections are these invitations for growth and healing. There's a potential here with this person, a potential for much more, a potential of, a whole new fresh start for you, a new beginning. And a potential to perhaps make peace with the past and put these things behind you, which are actually holding you back from your own joy and happiness ultimately. Now, for some of you that are not in a connection already, it might be something, in terms of love we're talking about now, where there's a little bit of a closed off energy to that. And again, it might be to have a little bit of a deeper look at that, because I do feel that's something deep down inside that your heart does want. But there's a little bit of a kind of closed off energy, or there's something that's very slow moving about that, with the Knight of Pentacles. May have been a past situation where, justice has had to come in and balance something that, there was perhaps something unhealthy about that connection in terms of those energies of give and take. It's often when there's one person putting much more in than the other. The hidden influence here is the Four of Cups, a new offer, a new opportunity. Sometimes that can be a new offer of love or some kind of creative opportunity. And I feel like the universe is bringing these opportunities. It might be more than one. There's probably just, one significant opportunity, but that's you sitting underneath the tree there. And sometimes, it's good to take time out, especially if, you're needing that time and space, you are still working through perhaps things that have happened in the past. You may have been a little bit closed off. And sometimes it's important to, take that time. But at a certain moment, it can become unhealthy as well. We might need to do that for a certain amount of time. And that feels like a healthy process because there's things that we're still, working on and healing. But at a certain moment, it can actually become something that is being limiting for you and holding you back from perhaps experiencing more in life. And so there is a caution here, while you might have needed that time, it might be time to kind of move out of that space. And I feel that's the universe. I feel that there's some kind of new opportunity or a new love that's come in. You may be aware of that right now, or it's coming in for you. But the challenge here is recognizing it, and not only recognizing it, but actually taking that cup that's being offered here. Advice from the universe, the Five of Wands. This often represents conflict, competition. And often more than one person, competing for something. That could be in the workplace. Sometimes, in the workplace, there are these situations where, you've got multiple people going for a promotion. And, there may have been, very competitive energy. I get the sense, though, that there's something about that also for those of you that resonate, that, hasn't really felt healthy. And the conflict, the competition, where you've got more than one person trying to kind of climb the ladder, trying to get that promotion. It may be a message, it may be a sign for you to perhaps take a different path. That might be going out on your own, working towards perhaps your own business moving forwards and investing that energy into yourself, because, when I look at justice, like I said before, that's an energy that comes in to balance something when there is a feeling of unfairness, where you're feeling like there is, an injustice or multiple injustices to you. I can't speak now. And, that's what I feel has kind of gone on in the past. You may still be in that. You may be taking steps to, balance this situation. This is an energy of, also just putting one foot in front of the other. You are moving forwards. It's one step at a time right now, but the most important thing is to keep on showing up. And like I said at the beginning, whatever area of this life, this relates to for you, I just see opportunity and expansion and growth and abundance, whether that is in love, career, finances, whatever that is. But there is something that needs to be let go of in order for you to be able to really embrace this. And, there's an invitation to step into a new version of yourself and to cut ties, walk away from, all this unhealthy competition. That's how it feels to me. Walk away from conflict, drama, and really focus on, what is truly important to you moving forwards. And have, I would say, a much deeper look at what's keeping you there. What's really holding you back? What truth is it inside of yourself that you are betraying? Because this is all about, I feel, knowing your worth, your value, and really setting those strong boundaries around what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, whether that's career, love, whatever that is for you, and take a much closer look at what's holding you back from really opening up and, reaching that fuller potential in yourself. In your outcome, we have the Ace of Cups. This is a new beginning, could be a new beginning in love for many of you. So this could be, for those of you that are in this connection that I talked about earlier, some kind of renewal in that connection. That could be you, opening up and just really following your heart in this, following your feelings and just letting those feelings flow and kind of guide you forwards. For some of you, this is a whole new fresh start in terms of perhaps a creative opportunity, which, could be your own thing that you're working on, or it could be some kind of new career opportunity for you. But that's also you, showing up in this new version of yourself as somebody who doesn't settle for less, and somebody who really does, look after your genuine needs, wishes and desires with, what you want in life, and not letting fear or limiting patterns or old versions of yourself that, you've outgrown. Because the energies of the Fool, this whole new beginning, it also says that you have outgrown your current circumstances and it's time for something more. It's time for an upgrade. So Scorpio, I'm going to leave that there. If this reading resonated, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, no matter what comes through in a reading, moving forwards, always trust what feels right for you. So thanks so much for being here, Scorpio, and I wish you a great month ahead.